Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Brady from Almost Pro Gaming, and today I wanted to do a review and give my thoughts on the new TAL Railgun and the Pulse Blastcannon from the Stormsurge and the Hammerhead respectively. And yeah, just want to give you my thoughts and opinions on this because I noticed that a while back, I know I'm a little late on this, but a while back people were going nuts about this online and talking about how strong these are. So I figured, since you guys like hearing my opinions on changes in the game, I figured I would make this quick video to give you my opinions on this. So with that said, before we get started, I was starting to work on another video that I should have out within a week or so, I'm assuming, that goes over my thoughts on the state of Warhammer 40k in general. But yeah, as I was writing the script for that, I noticed that it's going to take me a lot longer than anticipated to finish that video, and it's probably going to be like 30 minutes to an hour long. So yeah, I figured I'd get this out quicker. And yeah, also, again, sorry to delay the content that you clicked on the video for, but I also have an announcement that I'm going to make after this too. I just didn't want to put out too many announcement videos in a row without putting out any actual content for you guys. So here's some actual content, and then after this I'll probably have a announcement video, and then after that should have some more real content for you guys. So with that said, let's dive into this review about the Railgun and the Pulse Blastcannon on the Stormsurge and Hammerhead for the upcoming Tau Codex. So again, internet went nuts over this, and for good reason for the most part. Let's go over the stats and stuff in case you guys don't know about it, or in case you forgot, since it's been about a month. So yeah. So on the Hammerhead, which is a Tau vehicle, they have the option to bring a Tau Railgun. Its range is 72 inches, meaning it can shoot across the board pretty much, as long as it has line of sight. It's heavy 1, so 1 shot each. Strength 14, which means it'll wound mostly everything in the game on 2s, except for a couple of exceptions, like a Land Raider or Mortarion. I'm pretty sure Mortarion is toughness 8 now, although I can't really remember, it's been a bit. AP minus 6, which means you pretty much don't get an armor save against this gun. And its damage is D3 plus 6, meaning it's a minimum of 7 damage from the traditional means, which is a lot. That's some definite power creep coming in when it comes to the damage. But that's not all, folks. We have an ability. Each time an attack is made with this weapon, invulnerable saving throws cannot be made against that attack. Each time a successful wound roll is made for an attack with this weapon, that target suffers 3 mortal wounds in addition to any other damage. So not only do you not get an armor save against this, you do not get an invulnerable saving throw against this, and it does 3 mortal wounds on top of the 7 minimum damage, which brings it up to 10 minimum damage or 12 maximum damage in total. So that's not all as well, because the unit it comes on has another ability called Targeting Array, which allows you to reroll 1 hit roll when resolving its attacks. So yeah, you can reroll this. On top of that, knowing Tau, and this is just speculation, but assuming they're going to keep with some of the same stuff from previous codexes, Tau will have access to a mechanic called Marker Lights, which usually either buff your ballistic skill or give you rerolls of some type. So there's a chance they can get this thing hitting on a 3, re-rolling, wounding on a 2, re-rolling. There could be other things in there too, like ignoring cover and a bunch of other stuff. We don't know yet because they don't have the codex, and as far as I'm aware, they haven't released that to the public yet, since these are all just little previews of what's yet to come when the codex actually releases. One more thing before I give my opinion on it. They also have a stratagem that basically means that if instead of shooting at a 1 model unit like a vehicle, if you're going to shoot at a horde instead, you can use this stratagem, and you roll a dice for each model in that unit that you're shooting at, and on a 4+ it suffers 1 mortal wounds. If the unit you're shooting at has 11 or more models, you get to add 1 to that, so for each 3+, the unit suffers 1 mortal wound to a maximum 8 mortal wounds, which pretty much means if you're shooting at a horde unit, so like a unit of orc boys, like 30 of them, you're probably going to do a minimum of 8 mortal wounds in total, reaching the maximum potential pretty much every time, I would guess. So yeah, so let's get into the actual review now that I've said everything that this thing can do so far based off of what they've previewed to us, because there could be more as well within the codex, we don't know yet. So, what do I think about this weapon? Well, first off, I think it's pretty damn strong. Not getting an armor save, not getting an invulnerable save, kind of removes, like, it makes it like a game of solitaire. You just get to roll dice and tell your opponent what happens, which in my opinion isn't fun in the game. I don't like it when there's certain mechanics in the game that allows one player to just do a bunch of stuff and just tell their opponent, yeah, all these models died. So like mortal wounds, for example, although they're kind of cool, I think when mortal wounds get to be excessive, It's not very fun for the opponent because you just tell them how many models to remove and they don't get any counterplay to it, or very much counterplay to it outside of staying out of range or staying hidden. So yeah, I kind of don't like that. On top of that, like I said earlier, we have some obvious power creep when it comes into the damage. Before this, the obvious power creep to D6 damage weapons, which I believe this used to be, is some of those weapons became 3 flat damage plus D3, which is pretty good, but this is D3 plus 6. So yeah, that's a lot of damage. Now, to be fair, the first thing that comes to mind though is if any army was going to get a shooting attack that does this much damage, it has to be Tau, because Tau kind of don't get to play for 2 phases of the game. If the new codex is anything like the old codexes with the same themes and whatnot, because Tau's not really a melee army, so they don't do much in melee, and they don't do anything in psychic as well, so all their damage potential comes from the shooting phase, which means in order for them to keep up with the power creep of all the other armies in the game, they needed some buffs to their shooting, which they definitely got. Another thing to consider as well is that this is a heavy 1 weapon, it's not blast, and with this being a vehicle means if it does get in close combat, it can still shoot this weapon, which is pretty damn good. But the thing is I'm assuming this unit is not going to have incredible defensive stats. It has some, so like a glass cannon type unit in a way. So like in a mirror match, whatever railgun or whatever hammerhead gets to shoot at the opposing hammerhead first is going to win, which isn't really healthy in my opinion, but I mean, it is what it is. This unit, I'm assuming, will also have fly unless it gets the impulsor treatment, which is like a hover. It's like a pseudo fly, but not really. If it does have fly though, that's going to be incredibly powerful because then it can like hide behind a building using the obscuring rule, and then when its target presents itself, it can either fly over the building, around the building, wherever, get line of sight, and then shoot that unit and kill it dead. And because of the buff the vehicles in 9th edition, it won't suffer a penalty for moving and shooting. And then of course with the buffs from marker lights and whatever else they get, it'll still be probably hitting on 3s, wounding on 2s, and then re-rolling both because of this ability, and I'm assuming marker light abilities. So yeah, overall, this gun is kind of dumb. Thing is though, is so like, it's weird, it's hard to explain, but although I think this is kind of overpowered when it comes to its damage potential, do I think that this is going to mean that Tau is going to win everything and be the best army in the game? Probably not. Because one thing that I think a lot of Warhammer players don't consider is that damage isn't the end-all be-all to which army wins a game of Warhammer 40k. There's a whole other aspect of the game, which is scoring points. The hammerhead is, in my opinion, more of like an artillery piece. It's going to want to sit at the back of the board, make use of its long range, and shoot stuff across the board. So with that said, it's not going to be getting engaged on all fronts. It's not going to be sitting on objectives, unless it's like one in the backfield. It's not going to be really getting you many points for the most part. It's kind of just there to shoot the units shoot the problem units that the opponent has to be able to lower their damage output, which allows your other units like maybe fire warriors or stuff like that to go out and grab other points. With that said, a big part of 9th edition is melee combat, because in melee combat, if a opponent has a unit on an objective, you can charge that unit with your unit, kill it, and now you're on that objective. Whereas when you have a shooting army or a pure shooting army like Tau, well, once you shoot that unit off of the objective, your movement phase is already over and you have nothing to charge, so you kind of can't get on that objective. You would have had to preemptively put a different unit on that objective and then shoot it off the table with the other unit, meaning it would take 2 units to take over that objective. Whereas in a lot of other armies like Drukhari, Space Marines, Harlequins, basically you name it, pretty much every other army in the game, you can take over that objective with 1 unit because it'll charge, kill it, and then get that objective. Meaning, in a way, Tau kind of needs double the amount of units in order to do the same thing that other armies do, in a way, if you get what I'm trying to say. So although it looks like Tau weaponry is getting pretty disgusting in what their damage potential is, I still don't think it's going to be the best army for scoring unless they get some ridiculous rules for some of their other units that allow them to like move, shoot, move type stuff, which I'm not sure if they've previewed anything like that. If they have, well then Tau's going to be kind of dumb. But yeah, I think this, although they're going to do a ton of damage, I think Tau might end up being the army that will table its opponent but lose on points in the end. So in my mind, it comes down to, can the Tau table their opponent quick enough in order to win the game? Because they'll need to table them on like turn 2 or 3 and then use turn 4 and 5 to play solitaire and get as many points as possible while their opponent is basically off the table. So overall, not super overpowered. Again, overpowered when it comes to damage, but when it comes to winning games, damage isn't the end all be all. But on top of that, one thing that I do need to mention is that this is, in my opinion, a meta warping weapon. So if we do see Tau armies bringing like 3 hammerheads to every game, then I can foresee a future where people just stop bringing vehicles that have around 10 wounds. Haven't been paying too much attention to the meta within, to be honest, like the last 8 months, so I'm not sure if those are a thing. I do think Grey Knights, I think someone told me that, what are they called? The Dread Knights, the baby carriers were doing pretty good. Maybe those will fall off the face of the earth, especially if you don't get an invulnerable saving throw when you get shot at by this thing. So yeah, this is a meta warping weapon, which I don't like, and I don't like weapons that are at least this heavily meta warping. I think it's okay, because obviously when you're making a list to go to a tournament, you obviously want to tailor your list for the meta. But this is the type of thing where like Tau's not that popular of an army, but you're still going to tailor your list just in case you run into that one Tau player at the end of the tournament. And I don't think that's healthy. Like, for example, I would never bring Magnus the Red in any of my lists with this thing in the meta. It's just too big of a unit to lose to someone that has a couple of railguns and then some lucky shots from some fire warriors or something like that. And then the last thing to mention too is that also you could say, well, just bring hordes, but at the same time, they're actually not that bad against hordes because of this stratagem where they get to do 8 mortal wounds to a horde. But then on top of that, even though they're only one shot, because of this line right here where it says the target suffers 3 mortal wounds in addition to any other damage, that's a minimum of 4 models you're going to kill from a squad, like a orc boy squad, when you shoot at it. So if you have 3 of these hammerheads in your list and you want to kill a squad of boys, you're going to kill 8 plus 4 plus 4, which is 16. You'll kill 16 orc boys, which isn't the most efficient, but I mean, it's not horrible either. So yeah, so these things are still okay against hordes, but very good against like vehicle heavy armies. So yeah, so after all of that, to summarize what I'm trying to say, yes, its damage is kind of ridiculous. But again, one problem that I foresee with Tau, unless there's some really drastic changes in their codex that gives them a ton of mobility, like move, shoot, move, then I could see it where Tau table their opponent but end up losing the game on points because other people have more mobile units, whereas this is, like I said, more of an artillery piece in my opinion. And yeah, if you're just going to sit in the back and shoot all game and you're against a competent opponent, they'll just sacrifice their damage to get more points. And sure, you'll table them, but they'll probably win the game more often than not. So it comes down to, can the Tau table the opponent quick enough in order to win the game? And I don't think that's a very healthy way to play the game. I don't think that's fun for the opponent who has to just run and get points. It could be once in a while, like I don't mind those games at tournaments, but when it happens all the time and that's like the state of that matchup, then yeah, that's not really that fun for the opponent in my opinion. So moving on quickly, let's go over the Pulse Blastcannon, which is for the Stormsurge. So this gun is range 24, so a short range, type heavy 2, so 2 shots, strength 16, wounding pretty much everything in the game on 2s, AP -4, so not as bad as the Railgun, at least you get a save if you have a 2-up save, and damage 12, so that's the ridiculous part right here. Disperse shot, range 48 inches, so fairly long range, type heavy 6, so decent amount of shots, strength 12, so wounding most infantry, or pretty much all infantry in the game on 2s, including the elite infantry like Custodes, AP -2, and damage 4. I think this gun is relatively balanced. I don't think this is horrible, because even like your preferred target would be like Custodes. It's only AP -2, so if you're shooting at Custodes with like storm shields and stuff, you're not going to murder a ton of them. You probably won't even murder a full squad of like 4 or 5, but it's still, it's decent, but not overpowered. This kind of in the same boat in a way, because like you want to shoot this at vehicles, obviously. Unlike the Railgun though, it doesn't ignore invulnerable saves, which means if you're shooting at a knight, they could still have their rotated ion shield and still have a 4-up invul, which means even if you hit once or even if you hit and wound twice with this, they're still going to save at least one of those, meaning you're only going to do 12 damage to it, which is still a huge chunk, don't get me wrong. But that kind of damage could have been done by like a couple of Blastcannons, which is almost close to the same. Well, not really, because a Blastcannon's only strength 9, so it'd be wounding on a 3 instead of a 2. Minus 4 AP is still the same, and has the potential for 12 damage with 2 Blastcannon shots, but on average you'd get like 7 damage, maybe 8, something around there. But the point is that I'm trying to make, for what the Stormsurge is going to cost for points, which I assume will be like somewhere between 500 to 700, for that equivalent of points put into other units, you could still come up with 12 damage easy, if not more, against an Imperial Knight. So yeah, based off of that, I don't think this is that overpowered. It also matters how many other guns that the Stormsurge gets and all that stuff. But yeah, I'm less scared of this gun than I am of the Railgun, to be honest. Especially too because the Railguns, as far as I'm aware, let me go back to it. Yeah, it says nothing about moving, and you can still get, so even if you move, you can still re-roll their shot with the Railgun. This thing, however, in order to make it as efficient as possible, you're going to want to stabilize anchors, which is at the start of your movement phase, any number of Stormsurge models from your army can start to perform this action. The action is completed at the start of your next shooting phase. If this action is successfully completed until the end of the phase, each time this model makes a range attack, you can re-roll the hit roll, which seems pretty good. But again, that makes it a stationary artillery type unit. And this gun is only 24 inches, meaning it's probably only going to shoot stuff that gets close to it. So unless you get it in the middle of the board, it's not going to have that much range on most of the board. So you can kind of avoid it with certain armies. And then especially if they want to get into the middle, well, then you just charge it with a knight, and I assume you'll probably kill it with the knight in melee combat, because Tao's not that good in melee, as we've seen, unless they change their codex drastically. And the last thing to mention on this too is they have a counter-fire defense system, which I believe, based off what it says here, works on the Stormsurge, which is use this stratagem in your opponent's shooting phase. When an attack is allocated to a counter-defense system model from your army, the damage characteristic of that attack is changed to 1. If that model has a wounds characteristic of 14 or more, the stratagem costs you 2 command points, otherwise it costs 1. So basically, in a mirror match, if you have a Stormsurge shooting at another Stormsurge, if I read it correctly, you can make their focus shot count as 1 damage instead of 12. Yeah, so that's going to be a pretty cancerous mirror match, where they just kind of live all game and shoot at each other, or ignore each other and shoot at other stuff. It's like the Castellan all over again, where it's unkillable and does a stupid amount of damage, so you just kind of ignore it and play around it. Luckily though, unlike the Castellan, this thing has a shorter range, if I'm remembering correctly, and also, in order to be super efficient, needs to be standing still. So like I was saying about Tau in general, yeah, it seems more like an artillery army that wants to sit still and shoot you from across the table, or I guess from the middle of the table. So yeah, they'll probably table the opponent, but if they don't do it quick enough, they'll lose on points, because from at least these two units and their gun and the profiles that I've seen so far, they're not going to be a super mobile army, so they're going to rely on the rest of their list to be able to be mobile enough to get those points. But like I stated earlier, there's problems in that they're not really a melee army, and melee is really good in 9th edition because of the reasons I stated earlier. Like, so yeah, although this damage does seem kind of ridiculous, especially the Railgun, I'm actually more scared about the Railgun than I am about the Stormsurge. Yeah, I still think Tao's going to suffer some problems with mobility and actually scoring points, unless there's some really big changes in the codex that I don't know about. It's hard to know. All we can do is speculate because we don't have the rules yet. But yeah, that's pretty much my opinion. These guns are, yeah, they're definitely incredibly strong, and there's some definite power creep in here. But they're not unbeatable. But even still, is it fun to play a game where your stuff just dies, and sure, you win the game, but you just had your whole army get deleted? Like, no, I don't think that's a fun playstyle. And that's kind of the problem Tau has had for many years, and why people don't like them, is because, yeah, Tau kind of just deletes stuff off the table. And sure, you'll beat them because you have a more mobile army than they do, but it's just not fun to play against. So yeah, that's my thoughts on at least those two new Tau weapons. I can't comment on anything else they've released about Tau since then, because I haven't really been keeping up with it too much. Only reason I'm making this video is because I know the internet was making a big deal about this stuff, but like I said, I don't think it's too overpowered because I do think you'll still be able to beat it. It just won't be fun beating it in the way that I think you'll have to beat it. Yeah, always consider that too. The damage isn't everything in this game. Mobility is actually way better than damage in my opinion. So if you can get on those points and keep them, you'll win on points. And yeah, that's pretty much it in my opinion. It's hard to know for sure without seeing it myself, but we have to wait for the codex for that. So with that said, like I said earlier, I got an announcement video coming out maybe today or tomorrow, depends on if I have enough time to make it. And I also have a video that I do plan on releasing going over my overall thoughts on the state of Warhammer 40k in general, but that's going to take me a little while to make, so I might make a couple of short videos in between now and then while I work on that one in the background. But yeah, we'll see what happens and when I'm able to release that. So yeah, thank you all for watching the video. Thanks to my patrons for sticking around even though I haven't been making content. You guys know my struggles. I've talked about it in the patron Discord. And thank you all for being incredibly understanding and helping me out through this difficult time. And thanks to all you viewers who have stuck around during this content drought as well. I appreciate you all. I love you all. And yeah, thanks for watching my content. And I hope to be able to make some more enjoyable content for you guys in the future. So yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for being good to me. And I'll see you in the next video. Happy wargaming.